to another episode of That's What She Said. I'm your host, Amanda, and today we're tackling a topic that I know many of us struggle with: comparison. This episode is all about why we compare ourselves to others, how it's rooted in our survival instincts, and why in the modern world, especially with social media, it's become unhealthy. Now, I have to pause here and point out that my microphone wasn't working when I started to record this episode, and it fits so perfectly because instantly I started comparing my previous episodes and the way that the audio sounded with how the audio would sound now. And then specifically, I had someone comment on how my voice was softened in the first episode. So talk about comparison. It can really be an internal struggle. But rather than holding off on recording and waiting to get a new microphone, I decided to be my most raw and authentic self and record anyways. I was home all week with a sick child, and I was supposed to have recorded and released this a while ago. As my favorite saying, time and space is an illusion, and you're hearing this and coming across it whenever you're meant to. So today we'll dive into why women in particular are caught up in this and how we can begin to shift our perspective to stop judging others, to stop judging ourselves and others so harshly. So let's get into it. The history of comparison, a social survival tactic. Why do we compare ourselves to others in the first place? Well, for generations, comparison wasn't just some random habit, it was a survival tactic. Think about it. Back in tribal societies, survival often depended on being part of the group. We compared ourselves to others to see where we fit in, who is the strongest, who's the best hunter, who's the most skilled healer. These comparisons were necessary for us to figure out how to contribute and stay safe within a community. This was a basic human need, and it still is, the basic human need to belong. We had to know how we stacked up against others to ensure we were accepted, that we had our place, and that we weren't the weak link that might be left behind. So comparison to its root is all about survival. We have these survival tactics. I like to use one when I'm explaining past life regressions, that we might have the misconception that rest is lazy. Maybe it was never safe for us to rest. Well, for generations and generations, rest really wasn't an option. We were busy building up societies and our cultures and all of these things and trying to survive. So now we have all these wonderful luxuries, and if we don't rest, that's when we come into burnout, but we might carry this old belief that we cannot rest. Though it might be natural to compare ourselves to others with social media, we have taken it to a whole new level, and I don't think it's a very healthy one. Though I do have to say, I love, it's not social media, right? It's people and what they're using and doing with that social media. So I like to come across influencers who show what real homes look like. You know, those reels that show women with those imperfect homes. And it's just so refreshing to see. I know I was once very concerned about what people would think about me when they came into my home. And of course, I still want my home to be clean and presentable and comfortable, but it dawned on me one day that I'm not walking into anyone else's house and judging them based on their home. If anything, I walk in and I get a sense into how I feel while I'm in the presence of the energy of the home. So some homes are very cold and sterile, and though the decor might, blow a Virgo's mind, me personally might not be able to quite relax. Other homes I walk into and I feel very comfortable, at ease. It kind of, gives you that sense of like a lived in home. You're walking into your grandmother's kitchen. So I'm personally very comforted by that lived in, comfortable, relaxing energy in a home. And so I'm also love to find beauty in imperfect things and spaces. And homes are extensions of ourselves. And that's why it's so important that you wouldn't have anyone over your house that you would worry about them judging you based on what that house like. So if you're having friends over and you have some friends that like they can pop over anytime, it's like not a big deal for them to see your house a disaster. Other times if you feel like as you're preparing to have people into your home, if it's not this loving energetic exchange, if you're worried that someone's going to come in and like pull apart your shower curtain and, and look in your bathroom or whatever. Like, if you're worried about that, then maybe you should reevaluate who you're having in your house. So yes, homes are extensions of ourselves, and that's why it's really important that we are connected to the energy in our homes. I often hear, especially this time of the veil being so thin between October and November, our energies can come into our home. And the veil is thin. There's so much access to the spirit world and to other energies. And that access, though always there, it's just a little bit more easily accessible because the veil is thin, because the worlds are so thin, because we're in that era of death, rebirth, of that quiet space. And so it's really important to make sure that your home feels good. And I'll often hear people say that their home feels heavy, or they actually, hear people walking around or seeing or whatever it is. And I always kind of take the approach of, can we coexist with these energies? If it feels like, it's a nice peaceful energy, like learn to live with them. If it, does not feel peaceful, if it's things are breaking and it's very overwhelming and stressful, then, you might want to work on clearing that energy out of your home. So similar to how we compare our homes, an even bigger thing that I tend to hear people comparing is their spiritual journeys. And oftentimes when I'm in conversation, I'll pick up these little things people say of like, I can tell they're specifically comparing their journey to mine. And that right there is like, no, hold up, stop. This really sends me into a tailspin, because spiritually, it's really all about finding empowerment through your own lived experience, not someone else's. I don't think anyone should compare their spirituality or their faith or their religion or whatever it is to anyone else's, because we're all here to have a human experience, and how that human experience unfolds is based on the individual and the energy that they emit in the world. So just like flowers don't bloom and compare themselves to other flowers, we don't need to do the same. But as with many of our primitive instincts, what once helped us to survive no longer serves a purpose in us today. And so this is where we kind of take the bull by the horns and start to recognize these patterns so that we can mindfully and consciously let them go. Women in comparison. This is an age-old struggle. So let's focus on women and how we've historically been the biggest victims of comparison. From an early age, women have been taught to compare themselves to others, whether it's our looks, our bodies, our success, or our families. Comparison is deeply ingrained in the female experience. And what's happened in recent generations? Well, we've added in social media to the mix, and suddenly we're not just comparing ourselves to the women in our own communities. We're comparing ourselves to thousands of women from all over the world, often with perfect looking lives and perfect looking skin and perfect looking homes and perfect looking careers. Part of the goal for the retreats that I run, and I have 2 coming up, one in April and one in May. I'm so excited. The one in April is an art and yoga retreat. We have 11 spots left with that. I'm co-hosting that with Meg Staples. I'm just beyond excited to go on this retreat. I've never been to Dragonfly Barn, so that information is up on the website. And then I have my women's retreat in May, spring renewal retreat. So we did our first one last May, then we did one in September, and I have another one coming up this May. I'm just waiting on the dates, but I will have that out, and I'll have a pre-registration list. So if you're interested in that, you can head over to amandabryantTherapy.com and click on Learn More. So part of my goal for these retreats, specifically the women's retreats that I run, is to reclaim back our relationship with women. So there is nothing more powerful and healing than coming together with a group of like-minded women and healing feeling supported, feeling heard, laughing, crying, and connecting on deeper levels. I always walk away from these retreats in awe of the magic that unfolds when women are together. And in my own personal opinion, the fact that we have been pitted against each other for so long is quite a strategic one. Because can you imagine, just for a moment, just imagine if all women came together. Like, we would literally fix everything and have everyone fed lunch. So together, because communal eating is also an important part of being a human. So look at that. There is so many methods to a woman's madness. The other thing is that we live in a world of filters. Like, we literally view the world based on our own internal filter, but now we're viewing the world through these devices, and we're viewing the world. We're actually seeing a person, a place, or a thing the way someone else wants us to. So I remember back in college course I took and for my undergrad at UNH, and one was on mass media and the influence that it has over our lives. So let me give you an example. You're scrolling through Instagram and you see that perfect picture of a mom's spotless living room. It's beautifully decorated, the kids are smiling, everything looks just so perfect. But here's the thing. We don't see the whole picture. We don't see that the rest of the house is in chaos, that maybe she just did a quick cleanup before the picture. What we see is perfection. And then we compare it to our own messy realities, not realizing that we're comparing something to something that's not real. We tell ourselves, why can't I have it all together like her? But the truth is, no one has it all together. We're comparing our behind the scenes life to someone's highlight reel. So social media has made it harder than ever to escape that. And trust me, I too rage clean. And right before I post a picture, right, you might assume the rest of my house looks nice and clean. Please don't do that. Please always assume that my house looks like a disaster or like a fraternity on a Sunday. So as women, we've always been kind of pitted against each other. And I say when we're doing that, I think it is an example of distorted masculine energy. I remember someone saying one time, like, women don't get ready. We don't get ready when we're going out. Like, we don't get all dolled up for other men. We get dolled up for other women, which is so funny. Because then imagine if like none of us were in competition and we were all just holding each other up. Like, there is just some serious magic that happens when women help heal other women and receive that healing from other women. It really does make the world a better place. And the unhealthy side of comparison. The thing is, not only is constant comparison just exhausting, it's unhealthy. It can lead us to self-doubt, low self-esteem, anxiety, and even depression. We end up feeling like we're never good enough, and that is a dangerous mindset to be in. Just today, I was driving home from a hike with some friends, and I was kind of running through in my head all of the things that I had to do, and I wasn't even present enough to take in this beautiful scenic drive that I'm doing through this mountain on this gorgeous foliage day. And I just placed my hand over my heart and had one hand on the steering wheel. And as I slowly drove through these back roads, I just kept saying over and over, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough. And sometimes it just takes that. Like, we're so busy with the next thing. We're not present with what we're doing right now. We're thinking about what can I do when I get home? What can I make for dinner? How can I prepare for the weekend? That we don't just stop and realize that what we have is perfect. Where we are right now is exactly what we're meant to be, whether that looks beautiful or like chaos. So here's the kicker. At the root of comparison is often judgment, either of ourselves or others. When we compare, we judge someone else's life, their choices, or their appearance. And here's the hard truth. When we judge, it usually points to something unhealed within us. Remember, I said this before. When you're pointing a finger at someone else, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. So, for example, I use this one a lot with my clients. If I'm scrolling through social media and I come across someone's page and I see their vacation photos, I might get a ping of jealousy, and that will quickly turn to judgment. And I might think, oh, she's on vacation again, or like whatever. Maybe it's a bit nastier. I don't know. I could judge her parenting. Did she ever spend time with her kids? This would like be an opportunity when I find myself in this judgmental space. First, not to like judge myself for judging, because that's just ridiculous, because we're human and it's ingrained in us. But pump the brakes. Notice when you're judging and see exactly what's going on here, because it has nothing to do with somebody else going on vacation. It has nothing to do with how somebody else parents their kids, or it's none of my damn business. What I might do then is dig into this and come to realize that I'm being judgmental and critical because I want a vacation, because I'm not making time for myself, because I'm not filling my own cup, because I feel like a bad mom if I take time off. Whatever that the story is, it's about me. It's not about this other person. And the aha moment is that I realize I need a vacation, and what am I going to do about that? It's how we empower ourselves. We judge others because it reflects something we don't like or feel insecure about in ourselves. It's easier to project that onto someone else than to face it head on. So from now on, when you find yourself in a space of judgment, first, again, don't judge yourself for judging because that's silly. You're human. But then look at your judgment. Look at what is it that you're pointing at? What are you saying about that person? What is it if it's like, oh, they're so lazy, right? There's that one coworker that they are just so lazy. Maybe you can turn that around and say, well, when am I lazy? What does lazy mean to me? Was I ever allowed to be lazy? Do I think lazy? I am a Taurus sun, and I will embrace being lazy because you need that pause when you pull back an arrow before it launches forward. So to me, I think laziness is something that I've had to learn to embrace because I too was taught that you couldn't sit still. I grew up with two parents that never sat still. So not only is it important for you yourself to rest, but it's so important for your kids to see you resting. So we're looking at judgment as an invitation to heal. We flip the script. What if instead of letting comparison and judgment take us down a negative spiral, we saw them as an invitation to look inward? The truth is, judgment is often just an unhealed part of ourselves begging for attention. And this is the act of transmuting or alchemizing energy. So everything is made up of energy. When we take the energy of one thing, like a denser emotion of jealousy, and you work with that energy and change it into something with wisdom in it, that's making it lighter. It's like, think about it like taking a rough stone and tumbling it around to make it, a beautiful soft gem or a diamond. It's also working with the third eye chakra and our intuition. And it's helpful to remember that life is always happening for us and not to us. And I completely understand that this is a tough pill to swallow. Trust me. When I'm reading about children in the mining fields and because of products that I use, like Apple, Dell, or I don't use Tesla products, but that they're a part of it too. It makes me feel so powerless, so much guilt and so much shame. But child labor has been used for centuries, and this is a perfect opportunity for us to use social media in a good way to make noise to create change. So I'm going to link a petition from change.org in the show notes. And if you feel called to, please sign it, especially if you're an Apple, Dell, Tesla, whatever user. If you use technology to better your life, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but we want to make sure that the sources of where we're getting that technology from is coming from a good place. And if we're privileged enough to use the products, then we should be speaking on behalf of those who are helping us to have those products in our hands. So I'll link that in the show notes. But this is a perfect example of what I did this weekend. I came across the headline one morning and I meant to read it, but of course life got busy. And then my sister actually sent it to me in a group text, and I knew it was meant for me to dig deeper. So I went back to 2019 and when this was coming to light, and there's just still so much action that needs to be taken. And I, again, fully own that as a white, privileged, middle-class American woman that uses these products, instead of sitting here and feeling powerless, guilt, or shame, or judging, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to see, how can I be helpful? I signed, I donated, now I'm sharing, now I'm trying to put it out there even further. See, so we can always take anything, any emotion, and transmute it. It's very simple to transmute energy. It just takes practice. So it doesn't mean that these feelings of sorrow and guilt don't go away. They're of course still present, and I don't want them to be silent because I want them to continue to motivate me so that I won't give up on these kids' voices being heard, that I can speak on their behalf. So I just started reading the book My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem. The author explores how trauma, especially racial trauma, gets passed down through generations. He talks about how judgment and status seeking are deeply ingrained in us, both as a survival instinct and a way to navigate social structure. Throughout history, people have used comparison and judgment as a way to determine status and rank within the group. Again, this was about survival. But now those patterns still show up, even though they're no longer serving us. In fact, they're harming us. The author emphasizes that the root of much of our judgment and comparison is trauma, whether it's trauma passed down through generations or trauma we've experienced in our own lives. It often shows up in how we view ourselves and others. The need to be better or perfect often stems from the pain we haven't fully addressed. And this is why it's so important for us to heal our trauma, because when you heal yourself, you're helping to heal others. And even if we think we don't have trauma, there's another really great book called The Trauma of Everyday Life by Mark Epstein. And in it, he talks about how trauma doesn't just happen to a few unlucky people, but that it is the bedrock of our psychology. We all experience death, illness, suffering, loneliness. And if not for ourselves, we feel this for others as empaths. He also explains how even the potential for trauma reveals how the mind develops. He talks about the life of Buddha and how his early trauma of losing his mother shaped his path and his teachings. Through trauma, if it doesn't destroy us, and if we can alchemize it, and yes, again, we can all do this, it wakes up our mind's own capacity and to the suffering of others. It allows us to be more compassionate, loving, peaceful human beings. And I have a theory on this. This earth has been hosting life for about 3.5 billion years. And hominins first appeared around 6 million years ago. So with the most recent being Homo sapiens existing for 300,000 years, humans will continue to morph and evolve into something else. There's no way that life is just going away. I do believe in reincarnation personally. These are my own beliefs. I'm not trying to push them onto anybody, but I do believe in that. And so that I believe that we've been cycling through this earth and through these different versions all along. And I think that the next form of evolution is really going to be deeply on a mental and an emotional level. That's what COVID taught us. It taught us the importance of mental health. It taught us the importance of empathy. It taught us the importance of being helpful and not hurtful. And one more book that I really recommend is The Body Keeps Score. This is another great book on how we pass down our trauma through generations. It's epigenetics. So even if you had a really wonderful, cushy upbringing and lifestyle, and that's incredible, and I think owning that and allowing that to help for you to use that strength and stability you have to help others that have not had such a great upbringing, or to even just empathize, is huge. So how do we break from the comparison trap? Well, I've already given you a few tools on this, but first we need to recognize that we're doing it. The next time you find yourself scrolling through Instagram or Facebook and feeling bad about your own life because someone else's seems so perfect, take a pause and ask yourself, am I comparing their highlight reel to my real life? Am I judging myself because of my own insecurities? And second, remember that everyone's journey is different and it's meant to be journey. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Just because someone else seems to have found something you want doesn't mean you're behind or you're lacking. Your path is unique and it's unfolding in the way that's right for you. Lastly, try to shift your mindset from judgment to curiosity. Instead of comparing yourself to others or judging their choices, get curious. What can you learn from this? Rather than judging someone for why they're wearing something, investigate it, ask questions, be curious about it. Why does this person's success trigger you if you get triggered by somebody successful? What does it say about what you truly want for yourself? So the next time you get judgy, switch from judgy to curious. And more importantly, when judgment does pop up, ask yourself, what part of you still needs healing? What are you feeling insecure about? What do you need to work on internally to stop projecting these feelings onto others? Another comparison is an age-old survival mechanism, but in today's world, it's become a trap that pulls us down instead of lifting us up. Women especially have struggled with this for generations, and social media hasn't made it any easier. But by recognizing comparison as a form of judgment and seeing judgment as an invitation to heal, we can begin to break free from the cycle. We can also use social media to be the voice for others who do not have a voice, to be helpful, to share information. And remember, your social media, just like your home, is an extension of you, an extension of yourself. So be so mindful of the content that you're absorbing, that you're sharing. Make sure that you're putting your energy towards the things that you want coming back to you, not the opposite. So if you get really stressed out over the news, maybe go from watching it 4 hours a day to like 30 minutes a day. Making these slight changes where rather than feeling powerless, how can we not only empower ourselves, but help to empower someone else along the way? Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please reach out, leave a comment, send me an email. You can find me at amandabryanTherapy.com. And let's keep this conversation going. And remember, the next time you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's, take a deep breath, step back, and know that your journey is uniquely yours. Until next time, that's what she said.
Soundstripe.